All right, so we are going to have a look at Linux Mint 18.3 Sylvia today. Linux Mint is that Linux distro that the Linux geeks love to hate. Like, you hear it all the time. You know, lots of love and lots of hate from this particular distro. Some people are like, you know, I don't know. It's like, you know, I don't use Linux to show how cool I am. I don't use Linux to prove how geeky I can be because I can fix a broken system. I use Linux Mint because I need a productive operating system. Now, there are certainly some hardware configurations that it won't work well on. And I understand that. For me, every hardware I've tried to work it on, it works great. And that's why I use Linux Mint. So this review is coming from a person who does use Linux Mint on a day-to-day. I have Linux Mint here on my video production computer. I have Linux Mint right here, which is actually my portable web development computer. The one behind me is running Debian. But I prefer Linux Mint Cinnamon, and I prefer that because it has the interface, the user interface is very much like the Windows system, and I've just found of the variety of different user interfaces I work with, this environment for me is absolutely the most productive, and that's why I use this on my production computers. Now, I have not updated my video production computer here to 18.3. I'm still on 18.2. I have updated my web design one. And the reason is if this one goes down, it's a bigger deal. If the web design computer goes down, it's not as big of a deal because I still do my internal development on a different computer. This one's for when I'm out and about or when I travel or when the other one finally dies. So I have more time to work on fixing this other one if it goes wrong, and that's why I installed it on this particular computer. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the Linux Mint website and have a look at the things that have changed. And then we're going to load this up in a virtual box, and I'll take any questions from the viewing audience as I'm recording this about the types of things that we would like to know about it. So let's go ahead and transition on over. Okay, so on this, of course, I am looking at 18.3 Cinnamon. 18.3 Cinnamon and 18.3 Mate are both out and available for download now. I chose to do the Cinnamon because that's actually what I run on a day-to-day, so I can really tell you what is really the same, what is really different from the previous versions. So the first biggest deal is the software manager. Rather than using the old WebKit model, they're kind of modeling this one out of the GNOME or the GNOME software manager. Only this one does work a lot better because when you search the GNOME Software Center, last time I recall, it really only searches titles. It doesn't search descriptions. This one still searches descriptions. So if you type in web browser, it's going to give you a list of anything that has web browser in the description as well as the title. And so it still works just as good as it always has, except now it works better. The first major difference is you do not enter your password when you load it anymore. You have to enter your password the first time you try to install something. And then it remembers that password for a period of time, possibly until you close it, possibly until a timeout period. I don't know what that timeout period is. All of my experimenting with it have at least 5 minutes in between. Was perfectly fine. They also included the flat pack, so and we'll look at this when we actually boot the machine up in a virtual box. But the flat pack is down here at the very bottom. It looks like my mouse is not in line with the windows. There you go. So there you go. So flat pack is right there. There's a button for that. And so that'll show you all the Flatpak operations. And then there's a variety of different applications in there for you. So, you know, a lot of things that I wouldn't really want to use. They have included some popular software. Some people like, you know, and again, people who are like your hardcore Linuxy guys don't necessarily like these software. I think it's good they're starting to include them. I personally won't use them, really. But it's good to include them because people who are coming to Linux are going to be looking for these applications. And if we want people on Linux, we have to have some availability of these, at least at the initial steps. And so they have now Spotify, WhatsApp, Skype, Google Earth, Steam, Minecraft are all now featured and easy to install. And that actually reminds me, I'm going to do something while we're running on this. One of the only things I have found that's not working right since I updated this computer is Skype was not working. I think it's possible that the reason is it's still running the old version of Skype, and I think it's possible that Microsoft probably just killed it. That's my thought. So I'm going to go ahead and install that on this computer while we're working and see if that actually solves the Skype problem over there. So that's now available. Flatpak support, of course, we already talked about this. I almost wish they went with Snap instead of Flatpak, but Flatpak seems to have stuff as well. And I just gotta experiment with this thing here, except I'm not gonna do it on a camera for sure. Nintendo's just a little goofy. All right, so the backup tools, they do have a new backup system. The downside of the backup tool is it still cannot back up to a network drive, and I think the Ubuntu one does, if I remember. There should be a workaround if you can make a network connection on startup with the fstab file, which will automatically mount the drive into a system folder. Then that is probably going to be a workaround. I have not tested that yet. That's something I'd like to do, but I think what I want to get my backup figured out first, because the reason I don't really run a lot of full backups on this computer is there are so much data on this computer, and a lot of it I don't care if it dies. And so I need to figure out which data I have to keep and which data I don't before I run backups, because otherwise it's going to take terabytes of useless backups. And so that's kind of that. But the good things about it is if you go into the backup system is you can select which files, which folders, and if I remember correctly, I think they had something goofy that it wouldn't back up the config files by default. We're going to look at that. I think that's kind of an oversight. You also, though, can back up your software, which is good. So anything that you've downloaded from the repositories or anywhere else that is not on a default install, you can also now back that up. So that's kind of cool. So we're going to go ahead and do that. System snapshots. So this is the time shift application. This thing is rocking. You can take a backup of your whole system, store that at a separate location. Again, I don't know if you can store these on a network drive or if it has to be stored on your computer. I just don't know that. We'll see if we can investigate that. But time shift is really cool, kind of like the time machine feature in a Mac, where you can just pretty much take a backup. Way cool. Love those features. So there's becoming a lot of really good backup features in the Linux Mint. They do have a new detailed crash report system, so that'd be handy. I know my system, my web design computer, my main video production has never done this, but my web design computer, every now and again, I'd say maybe once a month or so, maybe less than that, it'll just automatically reboot itself. I'm not sure why. I'm sure that the crash report would help me figure out what's going on with that next time it happens. We have Cinnamon 3.6. The biggest thing here is you can now add your online accounts. I haven't experimented with that because I really don't use a lot of online accounts. But it is now a functionality that you can add into your system. Let's see. Synaptic time. Lib input drivers. I'm not sure what lib input is. I'd have to look at that. There is new spices. Again, I don't work with spices, so I'm not the one to comment on that. There's Nemo extensions. I don't really care for those. There's just, I really like the thing. Now, some of the things I'm looking forward to experimenting with a little bit more is I have noticed a little bit of instability in, I don't think it's Cinnamon, I think it's in Nemo. I've noticed a couple little weird things. One thing on 18.2 is that every now and again, and it's not consistent, and I have not tracked down what causes it, every now and again, if I'm moving from a network drive or from a phone onto the computer, it will move instead of copy, which is weird, and it's random, and so I always have to double check that. The other thing I'm noticing on this computer here running 18.2 is that every now and again when a new file gets put on the desktop, the icon doesn't center itself right, and then it makes it really hard to actually double click and open the file. So those are kind of little weird things that I've just noticed showing up more recently. And I don't know if those are long-term issues or what those are. So we're just going to keep an eye on those types of things. HIDPI support is increased. Window progress. That's something that's really cool. As you're copying files, and I copy files a lot, to see the progress of the file in the window. It's just a little fancy dancy little thing, but it's cool. I think that's a cool little feature there. Let's see, there's XApp improvements. So again, I've looked at some of these. Login screen. That's good. Driver manager. Let's see. Okay, so they've added some languages for you folks in other countries. They've added some language support over there. New artwork. Okay. One thing they didn't mention there is I'll just mention software packages. For those curious, yes, Firefox Quantum is actually included in it. That was one of the questions that I had because Quantum came out right about the time the beta came out, and Firefox Quantum is included in the install. In fact, that actually made me go download WaterFox on my system. I like Quantum, but there is one legacy plugin that I just need to have working. And so I'm running Firefox still for all the main stuff, but whenever I dig into web design, I'm going to be doing that on WaterFox because my plugin works fine. So that is just a brief review of what's coming up there. All right, well, I'm working on booting up the VirtualBox, and what we're going to do first is I'm going to talk about my upgrade experience on this guy here. So I have upgraded this computer over here. Of course, I just picked it up and the screen turns off. This is my web development computer, and it runs Linux Mint all the time, and I just upgraded it today to 18.3. So upgrade experience actually took like, I think, 5 to 10 minutes. To boot it up. I'm still noticing that it takes quite a long time to load the computer, probably like 2 minutes from power to the time I'm ready to work on it, which is quite a bit for 2017. So the computer itself was, it used to boot really fast when it was on 17.3, and then in the 18.0 upgrade, it just started to take a long time to boot up. And as of now, when you power it on, it still takes, like I said, about 2 minutes. It seems slightly faster than it was before, but it still does take a little bit of time. One of the challenges that I've encountered running this is that and I've always had this computer on an auto login, is when you go to shut it down, when you auto login, if you auto login and then you've opened up the keyring, it won't close properly. And so you have to shut the computer down regardless. And so what I did and what seems to fix that, and hopefully it fixes that, is to move it off of auto login. So it should be working better regardless. However, I'll say that I should actually have this not on auto login anyway, since this is one of my mobile Linux computers. I probably don't want it to be logging in automatically. It does have Firefox Quantum on it. The downside is it killed the extensions. Now, I'm not a guy that uses a lot of extensions, so I don't really care. There's 2 extensions I generally install. One of those was Firebug, and the new developers tools in Quantum actually work just as good as they have in the past. And so I'm just like, I don't care about Firebug. But the one application I really need working is the Show IP, because with the Show IP system in place, with Show IP, I can see exactly the IP address of the server as I'm working with it. And that's actually quite critical for a lot of the work that I'm doing where I'm duplicating servers. I need to have different windows up, and I need to know exactly in a second what server I'm on. And so that to me was a major important factor in that. And so I installed WaterFox on the computer so I could run that plugin when I'm doing development, which is actually a good thing because now I'm going to have Quantum for just my basic web stuff. I'm going to have WaterFox for my development stuff, and I have Chromium for my YouTube stuff. Nothing else seems to have been negatively impacted. I have not noticed any change in performance. I mean, things actually work a little bit better. The software manager works well. The only application that didn't work well is Skype, and I'm going to go ahead and test out the new Skype now that I just booted this up. All right, so here we are on the login screen, and if I remember, I've used Mint as the simple password here for the VirtualBox. So it should give us full screen when we log in here, but we'll see what happens. So we are running in software mode. You can't see the notification that's right behind me. So here we have our basic startup screen. So this is on a VirtualBox, but it is installed on the VirtualBox. You can come over here to drivers, and And so that's one of the first things you're doing if you're installing this, is just double check if there's any drivers that you might want to use. This is really good for things like this other computer here, my work computer. I was having a problem with the wireless, and it turned out that the wireless card had a problem, and one of the two connectors had died in there. And so I pulled the card, and I just happened to have another card from an old computer laying around. It happened to be a Broadcom card. So I dropped that in the computer, reboot the computer, and of course Wi-Fi doesn't work. And so basically I just needed to get in there and go into the drivers, hook it up to my phone. Actually, I have a USB wireless thing here too. I could do either the phone or just use one of these guys. Gave it an internet connection for the period of time, and then asked it to just jump right on in and grab the Broadcom drivers. So it did that. Everything worked great. And so here we have the various drivers that I can use. So it tells you if it's a proprietary driver or if it's, just a different driver. So you have that option there. Here's your apps. Of course, this should load up the new App Store. So you'll notice right away that it does not ask us for the password right away. And we have a series of editors picks. So we have Gparted, we have Skype, which is the new version. Let me get you the exact version of that. It looks, by the look of it, it looks like it's the version 8 of Skype. And so that's the Skype you're going to get. It's kind of the newest one there. We still have Banshee, which is good. I don't think Banshee's installed by default anymore, but the fact it's still there, I prefer Banshee. They've switched to Rhythmbox as of 18.1 maybe. They switched to Rhythmbox. I like Banshee better, but they're both pretty good. And so, those are your top ones there. I'm not familiar with MPV. That's good. So here you can search for your categories. If you want your flat packs, come down here to flat packs. You can see what you have inside of there. And then you can just kind of grab whatever applications you want. The first time you install something, that's when it's going to ask you for your password. It's going to check for dependencies, install all of your other dependencies, and now we have for the password, and so now it will install. So now that I've installed one item with my password, it's not going to ask me the password to install another right away. So that's good that it will ask for the password only when you want to install something, but it doesn't ask you for the password every single time. And that's very good. All right. There's forums, chat rooms, get involved. Here's your documentation. So you have all those things. So the next things, you can see the status bar went down. If you didn't catch the status bar, let's go ahead and install something else. Let's go ahead and go for Banshee. So check the status bar at the bottom. So this is nice if I want to minimize the window and check the status. You can see the status of it. It's going up. So that's really, really sweet in my opinion. I like that, the status bar. It's just bling. It's not like super user functionality, but it is a very nice addition if you're waiting for something to go. Very useful for me as I'm doing things because, basically I can start issuing a file transfer over to FileZilla and, minimize everything, and I can watch the status bar to see, make sure it's still going, whatever else. So that's actually a very good functionality. Other new items. Let's talk real quick about the firewall configuration. For whatever reason, now because my web design computer was actually started at 17.3 through the upgrade path, it never installed the firewall. So I do not actually have the firewall installed on this computer, which is kind of funny. Firewall is off on default. By default, we have the home of the office and the public setup, so you can do that. And I'm not going to take the time here to do that. I might do a video on firewall configuration down the road. Somebody asked for one of those, and so that's one of the ones that I want to do. I just want to do it at a later time. Let's see, other things. As far as the backup tool is concerned, this is where you can see if I go over to, you have your restore, you have your backup. So if I click my backup here, you'll see that the 3 applications that I have installed are available here for a backup. So I can do that, and inside of this, we can choose where you want to save it. Like I said, you can't save to a network location. If we hit network location, it doesn't find those. So I'm guessing that the workaround will be if you use fstab, load up the drive on boot, mount it to the file system. That should actually work. That's actually what I use in one of my KDE computers to make sure that my Kodi Media Center has access to all the network shares on my NAS. That's what I do for that computer over there. So I'm guessing that that would work. I have not tested that yet, but if you're looking for a workaround, look into that. And maybe I will play around with it and see if I can get that functionality to work. And if it works, great. Maybe I'll show you guys how to do that. Let's just go ahead and let's see. Let's cancel that, and let's see. So it's going into backups. Let's go forward. So it's going documents, backups. So here I can exclude files. Here I can exclude directories. So I'm guessing I was incorrect. I think that this does actually back up everything. It looks like it probably does. I thought in the beta when I looked at this, I thought that it was not storing or saving my my configuration. Oh, let's move forward next. Okay, so here's include. So hidden files and hidden folders located in the root of your home are not included. Okay, so I was right. This is a big thing. This is a huge, huge oversight in my opinion. And the reason is, if you want to really save your applications, you really need to save those configuration files with them. And so it is a sad thing that by default this is not doing that, because a new user may not realize that. So let me tell you why this is significant. One of the challenges, and this happened back with Outlook a number of years ago, you used to, when the earth hardened and computers were spawning from the ground, you used to actually be able to go into your Outlook and Outlook Express options and export all of your user account settings, which included all of your email setups. Okay. This is significant because my computers check about 10 to 15 email addresses, and every single time I want to set up a new computer, re-adding all of those addresses is like crazy insane. That's stupid annoying. And they did away with the ability to actually do that. Well, if you happen to go into your root folder and you grab your file, now I know this works for Evolution because I just did it the other day. You grab from your root folder config evolution folder and share local evolution folder and move those onto the new operating system. And literally that's what I did, because this computer here, like I said, this is a complete absolute backup file, which means this also checks all of those 15 email addresses. Most of the other computers in my office don't. But I wanted my Debian computer over here behind me to actually do that. And so, not wanting to set up everything, I came onto this computer and I exported just those two files, re-imported them onto the home directory on this computer, and open up Evolution, and all I had to do is enter the passwords for those accounts. It brings all of the emails, all of the folders, all of the rules, and all of the email user account settings. You do have to re-enter the password so the keyring knows what they are, but I'd rather enter 12 passwords than set up 12 full email accounts, set up folders, set up new rules, and all that. Those folders and configurations will not save with this tool by default, and that is a huge concern. And so to do that, you want to hit your include files or include directories. What you want is you want these guys here, these .cache, .cinnamon, .config. These are all those things you want. So you're going to want to come down here and save all of these inside of that. So this to me is an oversight. I think that they should fix this thing. They need to do two things this backup tool. Number one, save all of those folders from your home file because they are critically important. Number two, allow me to save this to a network drive without going through an fstab file. Those would be my things. However, this is still a great tool. I'm not going to criticize it much more than that. But we do need to make sure that when you're making a backup, you want to save those configuration files because that's what causes it. Take another case in point. If you actually see my OBS screen here, I have probably 25 different slide transitions available on my OBS window right here. And if this system dies, that's going to take me an hour or so to rebuild all of those. But if I save that little hidden folder, they all come with it. And so that's really critically important to do. So you need to save those little files. The next one application was Time Shift. So this is the other new one. So here we have the rsync, we have the BTRFS, and I'm not familiar with time shift as much. And so this one here, you create it. So the first one is going to take a longer time, and then it will just automatically sync. And then here it's estimating the system size, and then we'll go ahead and do that. So here we're taking the copy there, hit the next, and then you can choose how many you keep. You can choose whether you want it daily, hourly, weekly, etc. So stop cron emails for scheduled scans. So, there's a lot of different things that you can do. I'm not going to push the finish because it'll start doing something and I don't want it to do anything right now. So then you'll see a list of all of the items in here. Again, I don't know much more about this application than that. This is a cool thing. I'm looking forward to experimenting with it. It's just not something that I have experimented with yet at all. Of course, let's go ahead and have a look at Firefox because they've installed Firefox Quantum by default. So here you have your Firefox Quantum, and let me move that out of the way of my picture here. So you see you have these spaces. Some people don't like those spaces. Some people do. Some people want the search bar. So you can come down here and customize your look and feel. So if you do want your search bar, you can go ahead and drop your search bar. Let's get rid of these spaces because I don't even know why they put those on there. We do have your various controls. If you use private browsing window a lot, you can do that. Variety of different options. For me, I use the developer tools a lot, so I'm going to want to do that. So now I have my setup here. I can have my development tools down here. I can toggle it, get my development tools down at the bottom. Here's a new private browsing window. So that's actually nice. It's good to see that they have the Firefox Quantum on here. That's great. It works well, and that's that. I think it still is customized. I think, and that's maybe the downside. I think it is anyway. No, it's not. It's no longer customized. That was some people's biggest issue. I mean, I guess maybe it is. Actually. Before I do that, let's go ahead and... Oh, my mistake. It is still customized. My mistake. So they do take the Firefox build and they do customize it for themselves. I'm fairly critical of these, but that's for another thing for another day. But that's all right. Let's see if there's anything else in there. All right, so that was Linux Mint 18.3, the Sylvia release. I'm a big advocate of Linux Mint. Like I said, I like it because it just works for me. It's consistent with my desktop, with my workflow environment. And that's just kind of why I like Linux Mint. So huge fan, huge advocate, and I am running the 18.3 on this particular system. So it is a good system. Kitty's driving me crazy. All right, so if you'd like to help support what we're doing at Switch to Linux, check out switchtolinux.com/support. There's all the current methods you can help support us. I do have a Patreon account, patreon.com/TomM. And there's also Amazon link down in the description below. So if you want to shop on Amazon, maybe if you're getting some Christmas shopping done and you want to have Amazon send a little tip over to Switch to Linux, you can go ahead and use that link down there, buy whatever you want to buy, and we'll get a small commission for that. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.